Hello, everyone. I'm just, normally we have an actual real intro, so let me try and get that going real quick. Again, you all know I am not the best at all of this, so we're still dealing with our changeover with Rumble, but for right now, we're still on live stream. So just 1 second. We're gonna do. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Supernatural Show Network. And this is your host, Shannon, aka Soul7. So, this is a show all about, it's more like an introduction to the whole trauma based mind control and how it works, the subconscious, subliminal messaging, the things that are in your everyday that we deal with media, propaganda, all of those things. And so I wanted to start off today with explaining how I came to understand this and started my research and the things that I had found just in the beginning and the things that I see every day. And I will be checking your comments and having you guys enter in this discussion so we can learn as we go along. First thing I wanted to mention is that I hope you're all having a wonderful, blessed day. I know weather's been a little weird all over the place, but I hope everyone's faring well. And thank you again for tuning in to my show. Eventually, I will have my own intro and all of those things, and this channel will be called The Children of the Most High under the Supernatural Show Network. But you all have been watching Roxy's show and Daniel and my show and all of these things. And for any of you who are new tuning in, hi, welcome. So the point of this show on Thursdays for me is to really deep dive into the things that keep us going, the thoughts that we have on an everyday basis, the things that get put into our visual, our hearing, all of these things that we deal with on an everyday basis. And when speaking of trauma, most people, when they think of trauma, think it's some kind of physical or obvious mental, emotional problems or things that are really bad that you can notice. But the subconscious and the conscious of your brain work together. But when things are only in your subconscious, when you're taking so much in all at once, it becomes traumatic to your brain. So therefore, it is stuck in the subconscious and it cannot get into the conscious level of your brain. So you cannot make an educated decision on that thought or that thing that is coming into your process. Hopefully, I make sense. Sometimes my words get jumbled, so I do apologize. No, you can't tell I'm nervous at all. It's all right. Again, used to being a co-host, but we'll get through this, you guys. So one of the things I would like to use as an example, when you're watching the news, you don't think that all the little tickers that are going on at the bottom, all the different visuals that they have stimulating your brain is a traumatic experience for your brain. But your consciousness only catches on to so many things. The other things are used as a subliminal way of coding or messaging or indoctrinating into your brain. And for example, when you are consciously aware of just maybe like two or three things going on, but your brain is picking up on every little thing, it is adhering to those little things that you're not able to process in your consciousness. So therefore, it manifests into your everyday actions, into your own thoughts, when you don't even realize those are not your thoughts. They are a sense of programming that has been put and shoved into your subconscious that you don't fully understand and can work through in your brain. So therefore, it ends up manifesting in your actions. Or, I mean, have you ever had a thought in your mind where you're like, where did that come from? Why on earth would I have thought of this? I mean, just back in the day, if you ever went to the movie theater, right? And you're sitting there waiting for your movie to start, and there's all these advertisements for snacks and things along those lines, little cute cartoons, or I mean, that's kind of like the old school days when I was a kid, anyways. They used to make it really fun, like you wanted these snacks. Well, there were certain companies that would pay money to put subliminal things to put in those ads. So you would want to get, say, licorice or raisinets or Coca-Cola or something along those lines. Another really great example that I absolutely love to point out is in movies or TV programming, what they call, what is it? They're ads all throughout the show. Those are the ones who are donating money to get the film funded or the TV show funded, and you'll see somebody drinking a drink, and they make sure that label on that drink is very visible. Nothing is ever shown to you in these kinds of things like movies and film and all of that unless it is well thought out. And I'm not sure if you all grew up with Disney like I did, but back in the day, we used to have these cartoon blips. Like I grew up on the Disney Channel, and of course, they would play a lot of reels like during their advertisements between the cartoons and stuff of the old school Disney cartoons. And one of the most infamous, which is very much so out there on the internet for everyone to see, is where Mickey Mouse is in a cheese factory, a Swiss cheese factory. And as a kid, you're just bopping along. Oh, he's making Swiss cheese. Everyone's happy. You can see Minnie Mouse in the background, all excited, like, oh my God, he's making cheese. But you realize when you actually look further into it, the way he is creating the holes in the Swiss cheese is extremely inappropriate. And these things are pointed to children. When your mind isn't developed to a certain point, it is extremely easy to take in all of these things on a much deeper subconscious level than us adults. But we often seem to think when we're watching a movie with our kid or something along those lines that, oh, they put in some adult humor, so we're not bored, right? Well, that is not the case. They are putting that subliminally in your child's mind to make sure that in that subconscious level, their thought process ends up going more and more towards the inappropriate. Indoctrination is not something any of us are new to, right? Schools indoctrinate you through many different things. Um, Propaganda. I mean, we have propaganda politically, military, I mean, just in all kinds of ways. But as you see throughout the progression of time, things are becoming more and more blatant. But that doesn't mean that there isn't a whole slew of subconscious things and symbolism and all that stuff that gets put into these things that get trapped into that subconscious. For a while there, we used to have those, they were like puzzles where you had to stare at them and kind of like cross your eyes, to be able to see what the actual picture was inside of all these dots and random shapes. Well, your brain has already picked up and already sees that object that is hidden in there, but it takes you, your subconscious or your actual consciousness to see what that picture is. But what does that do to your mind? How does that form your thoughts when you're watching a program and all these symbols pop in and it's so fast that you consciously didn't see it, but your subconscious did? Does that play a part in your actions every day? Does that play a part in how you treat others every day? These are all very important things to really think about and deep dive on. We're in a time where every single day there is at least 6 or 7, if not so much more, things that are going on that is traumatic. How many plane crashes? How many drones? How many political kerfuffles have continuously just played out in our face every single day, to where there's just no way you can keep up with it? That is done purposely, because what that does is it compartmentalizes your brain. It shuts off all kinds of other things so your brain is safe. You don't have a mental breakdown. You can therefore handle on a conscious level on your everyday, and you don't go into a mental asylum, right? Well, those things are still very much so trapped into your subconscious. And until you sit down and you analyze all of these things going on, if you're taking it in on that constant basis, it is going to affect your everyday choices. This is why this topic is so very important. And again, I titled this as part 1 because this is an ongoing discussion. There are so many facets to this and a very long history that goes even before film. Everyone is aware of MK Ultra now. Everyone has the whole idea that, yes, commercials use subliminal messaging. I'm sure many of you have seen Fight Club, where Tyler Durden's character is flashing, inappropriate scenes within a movie. And that again is just one other way of showing you that this is something they've been doing for a very, very long time. And I bring this up because it is important when you're dealing with your everyday life, the people around you. We get so divided, we get so upset with other people's thoughts and actions, but we tend to forget that most people are driving on autopilot. They are thinking about the things that are subconsciously stored in their brain and not understanding where these thoughts and feelings are coming from. When you're having a political discussion with a family member and it gets very heated and you're just, why can't you understand this? Why can't you get it? We tend to forget how much indoctrination in the subconscious have we had, and have we had the ability to analyze it and make sense of it into our conscious behavior. So that being said, I would like to hear some of your thoughts in how you feel about this. So I'm going to go into the comments real quick before we get too much further into this conversation. But let's see. Oh, here we go. Yep, television is not real. Devil and Son loses. Yep. Let's see. Oh, this is a great topic. Why, thank you, LD. So far, we haven't had too much in the comment section, so I'll come back to it. But, one of the reasons I bring this up is we're in a time right now where we have been given many choices that are pretty terrible and not something that we would normally want to choose from. And there are so many people in this nation, specifically in America here, that get very tied up in the left-right paradigm without realizing they all work on the same team. And one of the ways you can decipher that is through their propaganda, is through the words that they say, the things that get played on television even before or after situations happen. How many shows now are out there that are just so uncannily predictive? But I mean, it's like we're living in that time now, right? But they came out a couple years ago, or they were discussing those things beforehand. That predictive programming is indoctrinating you to be accepting and giving your silent consent because, oh, I saw this on a TV show. I saw this in a movie. It's just like the movies. But these things end up manifesting in your everyday life and make you choose to go in one direction or the other without any real conscious thought. And here is where I'd like to play a game with you guys. Okay. This is what I used to do with my kids when they were young. And I'm not telling you guys your kids, but I want you to really make an effort. And when you're watching something that seems harmless or it's just your everyday programming, count how many times you see a triangle. Count how many times you see an eye flash. Pause it, or the great thing about the internet at this point, right, is you can take something and you can slow down the speed so you can see all the little things that get flashed in your face in an actual real way instead of it just flashing in there. So this is something that is important to do. If you're going to expose yourself to everyday media, if you're going to listen to the music, and sometimes you can't even help it. You're just at the grocery store and then a song pops on, or you're riding in someone else's car and a song pops on. Take time to consciously understand what is being played out in that. So that way you are protected from the consequences of it being shoved into your subconscious. It is very important to bring things into light. This is one of the biggest reasons that we have focused so much on analyzing symbolism and analyzing things on our network. Daniel has gone at extreme lengths to just spend days and days, hours and hours at the computer overanalyzing all these little things. But that's for a reason. So you can see the light of what it is they're trying to shove into your subconscious. So you do not give your silent consent, and you're not thinking things that aren't you. Back in the 70s, there was a big, huge Supreme Court case having to do with subliminal things in advertisement. And of course, it ruled in favor of us, the people, to not put in subliminal messaging into commercials and advertisements. But they haven't stopped that. If anything, they've just become more sneaky about it. I mean, of course, nowadays they're not so much, but back then they really did try to take a little bit of extra precaution to make it as subliminal as possible. But there was a point in time in the 60s where, the TV didn't go 24 hours a day. It shut off at a certain time, and they would have a sign off where they would sing. Oh my gosh, I'm having a hard time thinking, the American song. You know what I'm saying? Our theme song. But they would put in the lyrics for you to sing along subliminal messages. And of course, you can find that on the internet. There is so much proof, again, because you can slow things down and you can see that it says things like, obey God, your God is government. It even mentions MK Ultra. It mentions MK Naomi. These are all programs. It tells you to obey. It tells you to consume. Just like our favorite documentary, They Live. This was playing out in the 60s. And there is online too that you can find these pamphlets that were given out to those in advertising on how to create an advertisement. But you would be absolutely shocked to see how much they play on death and sexual behavior. Those are the two main driving forces in their subconscious stuff that they're putting in these advertisements. And it literally lists out in these documents exactly how to do it, why they want you to put death and sex in subconscious advertisements, because that sells. Why does it sell? Because you want to stay alive. You don't want to have death, right? You want to have a good time. It's focusing on your fleshly desires, and that's what sells. But there is a much, much deeper reason that they're putting these things within our minds. It's not just to sell a product. It's to indoctrinate you and get you into a certain thought process. And it is used for manipulation. One of the most prolific mind control, like trauma-based mind control times in history that everyone can look back on and say, oh, wow, they did that, would be Nazi Germany, right? And the way that they used their propaganda, the things that they did to traumatize, your brain. So you would allow mass genocide to happen, or even to those who ended up suffering in the camps. All the experimentation of what they had done was all basing on how do we learn more about breaking down a person and creating that super soldier that we want. And I say this because just think of the military, right? When you go sign up for the military and you go into boot camp, what do they do? What is boot camp? It is literally traumatizing you every second to break down your conscious idea of who you are. They break it down to the point to where it is so compartmentalized and so far gone from your reality that you are willing to do whatever it takes to get that torture to stop, to just be able to rest, to not be yelled at and put down. You then become of the hive mind mentality because your consciousness is no longer there. It has been broken down and put away into boxes in your mind. So then you are then able to carry out whatever necessary mission that they are asking you to do without your actual consciousness being a part of it. Now, again, I know I'm preaching to the choir. I know a lot of you already understand this kind of thing, but it's very important for me to bring this up. And this is a very good comment. Drugs, methamphetamines, LSD, methadone, and barbiturates added to the avenue into the mind. And that is very correct. One of the things that most people understand now about MK Ultra, right? They used LSD, hallucinogens, those types of things to get into the mind and control things easier. Why is that? Well, those particular types of drugs will break down your reality. You are then in a trauma state because you don't know what is real and what isn't. You start to break down. You start to try to make sense of things and nothing makes sense. So any information that gets put into you at that point, it is a direct line to your subconscious because you are not aware of reality. So it is an extremely potent tool to getting you to break down easier without having to use too much force. I don't know if any of you guys have seen any advertisements for this movie called Blink Twice. I believe it's on Netflix or something along those lines. But that movie, it's a very triggering movie, by the way. I do not suggest you watch it unless you can honestly handle something like this. But it is an open door for you to understand that the amount of trauma that gets put onto a person can completely block out memories of what has happened. But yet your everyday actions are playing into what you have been programmed, or playing into the whole idea that that was something that was fun and you enjoyed it. Like one of my favorite explanations, and I know I've used the mouse, you know what I'm saying, as a good explanation, but originally, right, the Epcot Center was designed to be an actual live-in community. It was like the first real smart city that was ever constructed. And they, the D corporation, the Mickey Mouse guys, they already have other communities that they've had since like the 70s and stuff. That's some pretty crazy stuff if you ever look into those communities where it was all Disneyfied and everything, was built like Disney, and you can be in these communities where everyone loves this thing. There was some pretty shady things that happened behind closed doors, a lot of weird rules, a lot of things that, in your everyday life, you would not comply to. But, you're living in their community, so therefore you got to go for it. And, that's a whole nother discussion for another time. But regardless, the Epcot Center specifically was the original design for like the first smart city. And the whole point was for you to be imprisoned in that system, but make it feel like you're having the time of your life because you're in a fairy tale land. Everything is all high tech, and we're going to all make this great community and not have to do a whole lot and just live in a fantasy world. That is our everyday right now. That is our everyday right now. Video games. Video games were originally designed for military use. They were originally designed to train military personnel in wages of war. And they are in every single home in America. I couldn't tell you with the rest of the world, but just about every single home has a video game console. These are all things that are extremely important to think about. So, as I mentioned earlier, if you just get a chance, and this is just kind of fun to do, I mean, aside from the seriousness, if you just have a hard time watching movies, things, and maybe you have a partner like I do who likes to watch stuff and you're not really into it, and you're like, why am I forced to watch this? I'll just play a game to myself and start pointing out, oh, that's an interesting symbol. Why did they say that? Why did they word it this way? Why is this visual happening the way it is? And I break it down and make sure that it is in my consciousness, not my subconsciousness. Because if it is stuck in there, that can affect my everyday decisions without my consent. Well, technically, again, it's silent consent. And that's how they win. That's how they get to our children. That's how they indoctrinate us. That's how they get us doing things that we would never have thought we would do. So that being said, I'm going to go into some comments. We'll see what all of you guys have to say. And again, this is just part one. My voice is doing a lot better than it was the last couple days. I didn't have a voice at all yesterday, and I'm super excited that I can talk right now. So we're not going to make this a super long show, and I'll have many more examples to show you for part two. But for right now, I just kind of wanted to make this an introduction and to get you guys to think about, why do we break down symbology so much? Why do we focus so intently on bringing things to the light? It's to make sure that your consciousness is aware of these things so it does not affect your everyday thoughts and actions. So, all right. So we have Amen, Blinky. This is spiritual. Christ is King. I didn't catch the rest of that, but let's see. Oh, New World Disorder says, I know about Walt's communities he built, right? I mean, I know that there was a band documentary that came out with a lot of the people who grew up in that community. I think it was out in Florida, the original one. But it got banned real quick because some of the things they were talking about, like underground tunnels and inappropriate parties with many adults and minors and things along those lines. This one says, stop geoengineering. Hope everyone has an awesome weekend and a healthy Easter break. Well, okay. There you go. And just to note again, I am all about Jesus and his resurrection and the fact that he rose again on that third day. But that is not what this holiday is really about. So for all of those of you who are stuck in, family situations where everyone else is all about the occultic version of this holiday, just know and keep at peace that at least that was the day, well, you're celebrating that Jesus rose from the dead and not this pagan ridiculousness. And I'm sure there are many deep dives on the internet that you can find out if you don't know what I'm talking about, but I'm sure most of you guys do. Susan Donahue, reminder, Epcot was the original smart city prototype. Exactly. And funny story, I was forced to go to Disney World with my kids when they were little. My in-laws took us, and they would have taken them without me and my husband, so we went. But the whole time I kept my eyes very open. And a lot of people actually online will tell you that when you're staying in those resorts at Disney World, and I don't know about Disneyland, but Disney World specifically, people feel like they're being watched in these resorts. And my husband and I had many discussions about this. We felt like we were watched in our room like 24/7. And I was having a conversation with my mom over the internet in my room when I was talking about the Epcot Center and what the whole prototype was and what the original design was for. And when I said that, the hotel phone rang, and it's a long story, but a lot of weird things happened, and they wanted me to come and pick up some kind of notebook that they said my daughter had left at the front desk. She never even brought a notebook. It was all a sham. They just wanted me out of the room. And when I got back at that time, and that was when they just started introducing those bracelets, the digital ones, to actually get into the park. This was the only way you could get into your room. It was really weird. And you had to fill out stuff with personal information. So while you're going through the rides, it'll say, hey, thanks for coming all the way from California as you pass through that ride, or just weird things that have to do with you personally that they're picking up on that chip on that bracelet. Well, when I went back to the room, they shut me off as letting me know, we know what you're saying, we can hear you, and you better shut up because you won't be able to access your room or anything else. So it was a very interesting experience, but a little bit more proof of, yes, that is exactly what it was about. And it's all about enslavement, not about let's be into the future like they want you to believe. All right, let's see. I'm reading a book called 13 Cubed. It talks about the different types of programming that people have. It's written by a cult deprogrammer. And here's something else. Now on Netflix, right? You can watch 50 different documentaries about all these crazy cults that have popped up, right? It is said that here just in America, we have over 10,000 known cults. That is 10,000 known cults. Every single one of these groups, their MO is give me your money. You better give up everything to the cause. You have to do as I say, no matter what. You have to be willing to do these horrific things. But what do? They love bomb you first. They make you feel like you're $1 million, and then the very next second start beating you or do something awful to traumatize you. And you're already sucked in. You've already given all of your belongings. You've already bought in to the cult. And there are so many here just in America. Imagine throughout the rest of the world. I mean, this is I still feel like the mouse is just another cult. Many of the mainstream religions are another cult. And the more you understand cult mentality, the more you understand trauma-based mind control, or SRA. And like I had said before on my previous introduction to this show, is there are many levels. And of course, there are people who have gone through so much worse than others, but every single one of us on a day-to-day basis are dealing with trauma-based mind control, or SRA. And we'll get into it again on the whole ritual standpoint on these types of topics here soon. But we're going to keep going on with these comments. Susan Donahue, one of the Black Ops games is based on missions my older Green Beret brother ran in Vietnam. Exactly. Then I found out they were using it for training. You know, here's another interesting situation. One of my best friends growing up, I spent, God, countless days at their house hanging out. So I got to know my best friend's little siblings. And the middle child, he ended up going into the service around, you know, I don't want to bring up certain war title names, but I believe he went into Afghanistan and all that kind of stuff. When he came back, he was such a different person. It was really hard to just contemplate because he was so full of love and life, and just, he was such a creative, spastic kid. And I just absolutely loved him. And of course, as we get older, we grow and change a bit. But his transformation was so extreme when he came back. We ended up having a really long conversation about, you know, what had happened and why he wasn't really even able to talk much. And he had told me back in, you know, his training, they had used the video game scenario a lot. And what they put him into, his infantry, I don't know how you, I'm not good with military terms, but bear with me. The thing he was put in were, he was the one doing nighttime reconnaissance missions in the tanks, and everything was in the infrared to where you could see at night. And their whole mission was to gun down people at night in these things. So they had already been trained in that exact way in the night vision scenarios and everything through video games in the military. So they could just go out and do it without any kind of conscious feeling of what was actually happening, that they were actually taking people's lives. And so they just made it like it was a video game in their big tank, and they ended up doing the things they had to do. But when they came back, it's like, you know, when you're in hand-to-hand combat, when you're seeing it in your face, of course it's absolutely traumatic, but you have that ability to say, this is actually happening. I am actually hurting someone or taking someone's life. But in that type of scenario, you are so disconnected from reality. You are so entrenched in thinking this is just some kind of video game, that when you come back and you realize that those were actual people, the psychological damage, emotional damage was just so intense. And it's hard because I see him all the time, and he still hasn't gotten through and into a better place. And so I pray for him all the time. But that's just the thing is, military training now is on a whole new level. And I mean, that was just the 90s. Now we're in a more technologically advanced era, and we've got unmanned drones and things along those lines that just take away even any kind of human connection to another human. So it's just becoming more and more disconnected. But on an everyday basis, those who have had to go into battle and do horrific things, they have to compartmentalize those things or they cannot function on an everyday basis. It's a fight or flight type of response. But when you're dissociating from reality all the time, you are extremely open to suggestion. And a lot of the things that you are thinking, saying, acting upon are not your own thoughts. It is the programming that has been instilled in you. So that being said, I just wanted to start this conversation out with an introduction. And yes, this is a bit of a long introduction, but it is an introduction because there is so much more that goes on to this. But if you get a chance, please, please, please play that little game. Whatever media you see, even advertisements on a bus or on a billboard sign, take note of every little thing so it can be put in your consciousness. You can learn and educate what those subliminal symbols, the subliminal message is all about, because I promise it's there. I mean, one more example before I let you go. There was one news reel years and years ago where they were talking about a news story, and in the back they had an advertisement for Krispy Kreme donuts. And the lady, the news reporter stops in to do a little advertisement for the Krispy Kremes. But in the small print, where it is very visible, you can read it, but it's still small enough to where you're not registering it with all the other big bold letters in the other part of the advertisement. It literally says, "It's so good, you'll suck stuff that's not appropriate," and using the D word for it live on national news television. So, which again, you can find that on the internet. I'm not going to show that here because that is very inappropriate and I don't really want to point out those words, but you can look for it if you are curious enough to see it. These are just one of the many examples. And if someone hadn't picked it up and decided, hey, I'm going to show this to the rest of everyone, then can you believe they just said that on the news? That was like in print for a Krispy Kreme donut ad. We wouldn't have known. It would have just been stuck in our subconscious if we had watched that. So anyways, that being said, I hope you are having a wonderful evening. Here we are at 5:00 here on the West Coast in California. So it's getting a little late and I have a whole bunch of stuff to do, but I'm so glad you all came to, have this discussion with me. And one of these days I'll have more people doing this with me so I can get more into the comments. I can have some more moderators, a co-host to kind of work off of, and it's not just me yapping at you guys trying to throw things out. And I will have some more visuals too to show you. I'm just very precautious about showing those things. It's okay when I point it out, but there's still that part of me in the back of my mind that I'm not trying to propagate that subliminal messaging. So anyways, I hope you all have an absolutely wonderful, blessed evening. And I know most of you on this show are one with God and have that relationship with Jesus. But for any of those of you who are new to this show or just haven't taken that step yet, I just want to encourage you that the only truth, the only way to get into heaven, the only way to survive in this insane world that we live in is through Jesus Christ. And I know I wouldn't be here if it weren't for him, if he didn't make that amazing sacrifice for all of us, that we may be one with God again, because we are separated here on this earth from God, not completely, but someday I know I definitely want to be up there in God singing, or up there in heaven with God singing in the choir forever and in Jesus's arms. And for any of those of you who feel lost and need true love and comfort, I beg of you to come to Jesus. And that was all I'll say about that. And I hope you all have a blessed night. I love you all, and come back to find out what in the supernatural is going on. All right. Bye, guys.
I've got one that can see.
Logic before authority.